what's going on there, YouTube? It's SEL0320 representing JV. I just want to give y'all a quick review. There's not going to be any post-edits, not going to be any renderings, no pictures, nothing. This is just going to be my authentic review for a movie that was premiered at New York Comic Con. If you do not believe me, here's the badge to prove it, and here's the Luke Cage shirt where I got it from. I just got back from it. It's Sunday night. It's like 1:30 in the morning, but I wanted to make sure I got this review out to y'all as quickly as possible. The name of the actual movie is The Marvel's Hulk, Where Monsters Dwell. This actually, the person that does the voice acting for the Hulk, his name was Fred Tatasciore. He actually showed up, him and the producers, and they were actually talking about the 10 plus films that he'd actually done the voice of the Hulk. He's done such a great job. They wanted to definitely bring him back for this unknown title. And the thing about it was, Hulk, the Agents of Smash, wasn't really a big hit. The Avengers, the initial Avengers cartoon everybody saw, that was really good. Of course, the Ultimate Avengers, the movie verse was really good. And honestly, most of the Marvel movies, the animated feature movies, they've all been really good. The only one I felt like was kind of like a little bit let down was like the Junior Avengers, I forgot the name of the actual title, but it wasn't as good as the rest of them, because the thing about the rest of them, they had stakes. They had things that was like, it added weight and not just kind of a cookie cutter mold. And I have to say, this one, it started off, to me, I thought it was going to be like really kind of sappy, kind of weird. But I think that Marvel, they just keep on nailing it, man. Real talk, because this one actually had stakes. This one actually had lives at stake, and actually had ramifications of things that happened in the middle of the movie, which I was actually unexpected about. But let's just talk about just the cast in general. It's not only the Hulk in this one, but you actually have Doctor Strange in this one. Stephen Strange actually makes an appearance. And then early in the movie, the Hulk and him kind of had to team up to try to stop these dwelling monsters that kind of came up. But it was really evident that Doctor Strange had been kind of holding some things back from the Hulk in pertains to what was going on. And I thought that was actually really interesting to add mystery in the beginning of the story, because all of a sudden some things start happening with the Hulk that you're trying to all right, what's going on with the Hulk? And it has to do with his duality complex with Bruce Banner and with the Hulk. And I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it, because normally in most of the movies or even the cartoons, it's always Bruce that has this undeniable anxiety about trying to transform into Hulk, or he doesn't want it, it's a burden for him, But this time around, it's actually quite a little bit the opposite. Instead of Bruce not embracing, Bruce is content with the fact that he needs the Hulk. Instead, the dynamics now is the Hulk is having an identity crisis where he's like, I don't want to be engulfed into this puny mortal, whereas I am considered a hero, I'm not a monster. It's like a identity crisis that he's kind of having within himself. And I thought that was really interesting. They've never actually done that. And I thought that added weight to the movie, which that pans out into something more as the actual movie goes on. Now, there's a surrounding enemy named Nightmare, and he's actually doing things within the dream state that nobody else can actually do, not even Stephen Strange. It's like his own domain, and what he's trying to do is trying to kind of wheedle his way in. And it's funny because Dormammu, which is normally like a villain for Doctor Strange, it kind of does the same kind of thing, but I think that with Nightmare, he has a little bit more power because, that's his world, And I think it's really interesting because Doctor Strange really couldn't do anything really about the actions that kind of take place, and that's the reason why he needed the Hulk, and that's the reason why the other group, the Howling Commandos, believe it or not, they actually brought the Howling Commandos, and I'm not talking about Captain America's group, I'm talking about the monsters, and the monsters and go from Warwolf, Nina Price the Vampire, who else? They had, what is it? Oh my gosh, Man-Thing. They actually have Man-Thing. And I actually, to be quite honest with you, I actually am a lover of really random big creatures. I was sitting there wanting a Swamp Thing to show up, but I know that Man-Thing is something that people have not seen. And I think that he actually kind of stole the show a little bit. The moments there and the way they actually used the animation for him is definitely a nice touch. The other thought was the person that was leading the Howling Commandos was Captain Sitwell. And Sitwell is a zombie, And I was like, how does this work? Because to me, if I'm not mistaken, Sitwell worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., but he ended up being like, he was under espionage because he was working with Hydra. So I don't know how that's going to play out later, or if that's going to play out in the cartoons, but it was really interesting because he's got this like really different tweak where he wants to be a zombie, where he wants to eat and feed, and these other part of him where he's trying to command. And I thought that was like, what are they going to use him to do, you know? But he actually was pretty useful. I mean, I think Warwolf was kind of like the one that was the kind of the loose cannon. Nina Price, she actually has some really cool powers, but all around, out of the Howling Commandos in general, I would definitely say that Man-Thing stole the show, in my opinion. But the way that the movie kind of pans out as far as the story and the art, it actually is really interesting because where you think it's gonna end, and they're like, all right, the heroes have to kind of come together, and you know, it's kind of that cookie cutter fashion. Even in spite of them coming together, it still was not enough to get resolved, and that's where, to me, the dynamics of those, you know, Marvel films kind of lack, where it's like a blueprint where you know this person's not going to die, this stake is not going to happen, nothing's going to be any ramifications in this movie. And in even most of the animated features they did before, they were real stakes. I mean, if you remember Ultimate Avengers 2, spoiler alert, like, you know, Ant-Man, Giant Man sacrificed himself and he died, you know? I mean, it was real stakes. Even in like Planet Hulk, you know, there were real stakes that were there. And I think that this is nothing short of that, because even though the Hulk is the strongest there is, like, he still has, you know, another part of him. And how these two have to kind of work together or not to get the resolve of this, I thought it was really interesting. And then you bring in another factor, which is the kids. Nightmare, his whole game plan was to get a lot of the kids. And the kids really, in my opinion, even in the beginning, like, there was a interesting moment with Doctor Strange and some kids trying to go trick-or-treating, and then they were seeing the fight kind of go on. They were like, what the heck is going on? They saw the Hulk, it was freaking out. It was really interesting to bring the kid element into there, because that brings excitement for the kids, you know, and keeps it kind of like limber. But then when things start happening to the kids, that's when you're like, all right, these are real stakes. And I think I appreciated that from this, because I didn't expect that from this kind of film, because I was thinking this is going to be more like the Ultimate, you know, the different series that are on the DC All XD. But all in all, I think it was actually a pretty good story. There were some messed up things that happened. I will say this could frighten some kids, because the demonic and like witchcraft kind of stuff that's going on. But even with Doctor Strange in general, like, I mean, if you know what you're getting into, you'd be okay. But in general, like, I mean, there's a lot of wizardry, you know. I mean, I'm not all partial to all that personally, but I was sitting there watching a little kid. He kept on looking back at me, and he was like, you know, I think he was kind of looking at me whether I was okay. I made sure I was laughing when I need to laugh, and kind of like, wow, when I need to laugh, you know. But it was really good, actually. I was surprised by how I actually liked it. For an animated feature, out of all the different animated features, I would probably give this one 8 out of 10, surprisingly. I didn't think that I would, but I think because it gave me weight and gave me, you know, ramifications, I actually really liked it. Now, if I had to go as a whole, I mean, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10 if I give it out a whole of all the different films. But as far as animation style, I think they did a good job. And even like the fight sequences, they did a really good job with it. I think the only part that I felt was lacking is when the Howling Commandos would have to do certain things towards the latter end. I felt like that was kind of rushed, and that's the reason why I had to lower the rating for it. But in general, like, the beats that they got right, they did a really good job with. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this early review for Marvel's Hulk, Where the Monsters Dwell. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace.